Meeting is recorded and live streamed, as you heard. And will the clerk please now call the roll?
Councilmember Daughtry.
I'm here.
Thank you. Mayor Marine.
Here.
Thank you. Councilmember Mead.
Here.
Thank you. Let's see here. Mayor Nearing.
Here.
Thank you. Councilmember Merrill.
Here.
Thank you. Labor Representative Norton.
Here, thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Roberts.
Here, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Schweddy.
Here.
Thank you. And Councilmember Wright is excused. Chair, we do have a quorum. I'll take roll for board alternates now.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Gallagher.
Here.
Thank you. Councilmember Johnson. Mayor Matsumoto Wright. Councilmember Nearing. Chair, that concludes roll.
All right, thank you very much. The next on the agenda is public comment. We have public comment where you can talk to the board for 2 minutes. We have one written comment that was submitted. Rachel sent that out later or earlier today, and hopefully everybody's had a chance to see that. It was from Mr. Joe Kunzler. Do we have anybody signed up as of now to speak? No one has signed up, so I will ask the participants if there's anybody that would like to speak to the board to raise their hand, and we'll let you in to speak for your 2 minutes. Not seeing any as of now. Any attendees? Nope. All right, we will close the public comments portion. Next, we will move on to the Chief Executive Officer's report.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have a full agenda today, so I will be very brief. I want to welcome everybody in attendance today. We're excited to get the year started off strong with a review today of some of our key strategic programmatic items for the year. And also employees are always excited to get our leadership team defined going forward at the policy level. So we will end this workshop promptly at 4:15, so we have time to make the transition to the board selection meeting that follows at 4:30. Just a couple of brief things to touch on for the agency. Omicron is not spared community transit. We are at 42 cases as of this afternoon in the month of January, which is nearly twice our previous high month, which was 23 in September. So this is obviously presenting some challenges. I've taken a number of steps to help provide more flexibility to our operations group and our employee engagement group to maintain service reliability. And I'll delve into that in a little more detail at our February board meeting. But I just wanted to make sure the board was aware that we're juggling the Omicron wave along with everybody else. A couple of good news items to share before we move into the workshop. You'll recall our November board meeting, a gentleman from Snow Goose Transit, John Bermani, came and testified and asked about collaborating potentially on a donation of a paratransit vehicle. I'm pleased to report we've been able to work that out with Mr. Bermani, and this will provide some microtransit service, nonprofit microtransit service in the Stanwood Camino area. And we're just delighted we've been able to figure out a way to make this work with donating a paratransit vehicle that had been previously surplused. So that's great news, and there will be a little bit of a ceremony scheduled for that handoff at a later date. And then lastly, pleased to report to the board that we learned from FTA last Friday that they have moved forward our capital investment grant for the Orange Line project to DOL. And there's now a 2.5 week clock to finalize that grant through the DOL pinning process. So we are literally on the launch pad with the Orange Line, and our federal partner is with us. So great news there. Mr. Chair, that concludes my CEO report.
Thank you. Next, we'll move on to presentations, 2022 outlook. Rick, you're going to provide some comments.
I'll keep right on going. Yeah. Our focus today is to give you a preview of some major areas of staff focus for 2022. I mentioned Orange Line a second ago. We're not going to delve into the BRT program today because you received, if you recall, a BRT programmatic update briefing just before the end of the year. So we're not touching on everything that's happening with the organization, but we want to provide you with a look at some of the things we're doing to position the organization for growth as the county grows, and to position the agency to support and integrate with light rail when it opens in 2024. So we're going to start with a review of where we are in the 2024 service development process. We just completed a public engagement effort to gain initial public input into that process before we start developing specific network concepts. We got a great response. We had almost 1,000 surveys submitted. So the planning group is going to go over what we heard and talk about where that process goes from here. We are going to brief you on our recruitment campaign for growing the staff to meet the demands of service that 2024 network will require. We are on a growth trajectory, regardless of the arc of the pandemic. Population and employment are forecasted to continue to grow. Snohomish County is expected to continue to lead in that area. And so the transit system is poised to grow with it. And that means making sure that we're in a position to recruit and retain talent here in the organization to provide those essential services. So Cesar will go through the campaign that we're conducting right now to attract and grow talent over the course of the next few years. We will provide as well an update on where we are with our zero emission vehicle study. I know that's something that's of great interest to the board. June Duvall is here today to update you on where we've gotten so far in the early going since we kicked off the study last fall. I'll just preview her comments a little bit to say that in April, we're expecting to use our board workshop to do a deep dive just on that topic with our consultant team with us to help support that discussion. Huge priority, obviously, it's a constant topic of conversation with our federal funding partners and also with our state partners down in Olympia. And lastly, we will give you a review on where we are with implementing our facility master plan. We're just about done with the new Cash Park administrative building, and we're making great progress on the Merrill Creek operating base expansion. And there's more to come as well. So June will also give you an update on where we are with FMP. So with that, I want to invite Thomas Tamola to step up and kick us off with our 2024 network update. Thomas?
Thank you, Rick. Can everyone see this? Great. So we're just about at the midpoint of our development process. We just completed a phase 1 outreach this fall, ended early December, mid-December, and we're about to jump into phase 2 outreach and the development of our draft network and collecting refined input from the public on this initial design, which will be showing bus routes, so much more detailed than before. We'll be coming back to the board now to inform you what we heard, kind of a summary from the community. And at the end of this year, the December board meeting, there's a decision point. We'll bring back all the input for approval of consideration of approval of the final draft network. So just kind of a brief recap of kind of what frames this overall effort. You've probably seen this before, but we've got 4 main goals here that drive the whole development process. That's connecting bus to light rail, expanding access to frequent service, adjust the changing markets, and a focus on equitable access. This is all underpinned by Travel Made Easy for All. So just a little bit about the outreach process. The survey was part of an online open house that was available to the public in multiple languages. We got almost 1,000 responses during that time period. For the phase 2 outreach, there's definitely some lessons learned and areas that we don't have additional focus or improvement upon. An example is like a more tactical outreach to local riders at major transfer points, which do not include the more larger typical transit centers and park and rides. The bottom line is that this was a big first step into a more inclusive outreach process. So the first phase of outreach was focused on assessing high-level customer values, tastes, or preferences. These are preferences relating to, for example, time of day or week of travel, especially during the COVID pandemic, as a lot of those have shifted away from like typical AM, PM weekday commute periods towards other times of the day or the week. So kind of what we heard here and super summary, this doesn't add up to 100%, but we kind of look at here non-riders and barriers for usage for, existing transit riders, kind of the top 2 or 3 level responses. Note the distinction between the two groups. Non-riders tend to focus more on access to their trip origin or destination end versus current riders who are more focused on things like service quality, wait time, access to bus stops, but pretty material in the responses and good direction on where we're going to kind of direct more of our focus. The next slide here is related to kind of service priorities. Kind of there's a dichotomy here on kind of, not just how light rail impacts markets, but kind of what are priority kind of places folks want to get to. There's sort of like local destinations within the county. And then there's transit centers, which are sort of collecting points, especially for making regional connections to places like Seattle and Bellevue. Riders want an ease and convenience for their trip. There's sort of a split in the desired area for more additional ridership sort of for non-commute periods. You kind of see a convergence of kind of weekdays and service during the middle of the day. That's kind of that time period between when any AM commute ends and before the schools get out, sort of like 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. And there's, least interest kind of for adding trips later in the afternoon, and definitely a lot of preferences again for weekday service additions. So the immediate next steps, so this is what we're working on very hard behind the scenes between now and the spring, is sort of kind of doing a deeper dive on the data and looking for differences in answers between communities. Ensure we've heard the voices of our equity communities, really kind of looking at the data closely and tabulating those results. And then finalizing kind of the draft network plan that we're going to put out for public comment. That will include detailed maps that the public can review route by route, existing routes, proposed routes, modified routes. And just kind of for important to note, we'll be out there in the community later this winter into early spring, testing some potential routes. That includes streets that we don't actually operate on today. And then we'll be preparing those maps formally for public feedback, as I mentioned. So my last slide is just kind of a review here of the schedule, the kind of the immediate look ahead here in 2022. We're doing that detailed service design this quarter. There'll be a little bit more partner agency outreach on some of these routing options, things like turns, kind of late April, very early May, formally going into phase 2 external outreach, then some additional design this summer, and then kind of targeting that date, board date in December for board adoption. And we're all, implementation happening between that point in a phase basis to when Lake opens in mid-2024. And I'll open it up for any questions or comments.
Thank you, Mr. Tamola. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Tamola? No. Okay, you did a great job. Thanks.
Thank you.
Next, we're going to hear from somebody on Recruitment Campaign.
That would be me, Cesar, and also Jennifer. We're happy to present on the collaborative work that has taken place over the last several years, but I see, okay, thank you, Jennifer. Let me start all over again. We're happy to present on the collaborative work that has taken place over the last several years to ensure we are positioned to meet our current and future recruitment needs. Presenting with me is Jennifer. Jennifer, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, if I can unmute. Hi, I'm Jennifer Jeter. I'm the Senior Marketing Strategist in the marketing team.
If we could go to the next slide, please. There are many recruiting challenges ahead. We have all seen the headlines announcing the workforce shortage throughout the nation. With this as the background, we are working toward meeting our staffing needs for 2024. Between now and 2024, we will need to recruit an additional 89 to 139 additional coach operators based on preliminary planning numbers. Although today's presentation will focus on the largest group of employees we will need to hire, coach operators, we will also need to recruit support staff to include vehicle service attendants, vehicle service workers, and journey mechanics. Next slide, please. Over the last 3 years, we have worked closely with marketing on a data-driven approach to develop and test marketing methods that work best for the candidates we seek. Jennifer?
Okay, great. I'm going to take you through the marketing campaign and the work that we've been doing to recruit coach operators. So key to what we're doing is to try to increase awareness about community transit and specifically the coach operator job. So take the work that employee engagement is doing and expand the work outward and try to get people interested in the job, know it's available, and then pull them in to apply. For us, that means using paid marketing tactics to reach potential job candidates. And that includes people who are actively searching for jobs, so reaching them as they search, but also people who are passively unhappy in their job or maybe looking for other positions that we actually think that they would be a good applicant for our job. And as goes with that, we're leveraging bus driver recruitment personas to help us drive the creative messaging as well as the targeting. So I'm going to tell you a little bit more about that. So working with employee engagement, we've worked up these personas. So these are the kinds of job applicants that have been most successful for us and the ones that we want to seek now and in the future. And key to the marketing aspect of it is we think about how do we target these people? Where are they going to look for jobs? What kind of media are they viewing? How can we reach them? And I think part of the key to this is also that of these personas, only one would consider themselves a professional driver. We're actually going for people who are transitioning out of the military or who are in other industries. And so that provides, something of a challenge to let them know that they could be a bus driver and they could be a great one. And how do we attract them in to this job by letting them know what a great fit it actually is for them? So part of the way we do that is looking at what we show them in the advertising. So we were looking for the visuals. We were looking for things that we could customize to try to speak to those different personas. And we tested a couple different approaches. And the one that was most effective was this graphical approach. It stands out among other crowded advertising. And key to it, it's very direct. We're looking for drivers, but we're looking for not just about the driving, it's about who they are. It's maybe they're coming from another industry, maybe it's speaking to the heart of them. So we use the kind of cross out and the handwritten style text to add a little warmth and a little personality. and to hopefully reflect to people who don't think of themselves as a professional driver, speaking to how they do view themselves, or maybe help them picture or get interested in a job they might not normally consider. With those kind of tools in hand, what we do is we go out into the world and try to find people where they are and attract them in. So as I mentioned, there's kind of two key ways we look at it. There's the active job seekers, the people who are looking for jobs. We want to be where they are looking, and we want to have a presence that's optimized to be of interest to them. So we've done a lot of work on how we appear on the job boards, how our listings look, how we can make the job description really sell them on the job and make them understand the benefits we provide, like the paid training, and that, you know, even if they don't have that professional job experience, we will get them confidently on the road. Then the other side is to do these kind of broad reach tactics to try to reach the passive job seekers. So the people who are not looking for us, but we want to attract them. And we go more broadly with paid social, digital, streaming, audio and video, and also doing mail that goes to their homes. So trying to, you know, get out there and get people interested in the available job. So a lot of numbers here, but I just wanted to highlight some of the stuff that we look at. So we are really looking at how effective are we? Are we, you know, going out, you know, which is working better than something else? So kind of, you know, working our way down, it's, you know, kind of like a funnel for marketing. So at the top, it's what opportunities are we creating? So how much do we have the advertising out there that we're giving people a chance to see it? So like for this last year, over 6 million impressions. So that's the ads being out in the world and someone could engage with them. Then we look at who is engaging with them. How many people are clicking on it, coming to our website, they're watching a video, they're sharing or they're liking, they're taking some action. We also look at the people who come to our website and look at the pages related to our recruitment efforts, and we see how they're getting there. And we also look at people who go out to the job portal itself to apply and see how they are getting to that point, which of our advertising methods are driving them in. And then we look at the job applications themselves, people who started the job application, and the people who say how they heard about us. So how are they thinking that they heard about the job, as well as the data that comes from the system itself. Once the coach operators kind of come in, then employee engagement has the hard work of filtering through those people to find the qualified applicants. And I'll let Cesar talk a little bit more about the process that they have in place for that.
Thank you, Jennifer. So we have, we're very proud of a process that we have in place that really has assured that we have a high level of success with our coach operators. In the past, we were seeing an attrition rate of anywhere from 33 to 50%. Through analysis of our processes and identifying key indicators for success, we are proud to say that we now have a retention of almost 100% of coach operators. We accomplished this by assessing our process and used metrics to better identify qualities that ensure success through training, probation, and permanent employment. Jennifer?
Yes, thank you. And I think it shows too that it also goes to what Cesar mentioned of being a particularly difficult job market. As far as finding those qualified applicants, they are really in demand by everybody. It also speaks to the challenge that we have, which is if we need more people being hired, we need more applications, we need more people seeing our ads, we need more ads out there. So we know that that is the challenge ahead as we look at the kind of numbers that we need in the future. So speaking to that, like what do we have planned for this year? More, I think is the short answer. So more TV, we are now out on cable TV. with advertising, more streaming video, more radio and streaming audio. We've had good success testing direct mail in the current environment, and so that's something we're going to continue to do. There's more interesting things we can do in digital advertising, and we're playing with that. And there's more tools available through the job boards that will allow us to go seek people as opposed to only having them attract in. We're also seeking a partner in this space. Recruitment, marketing, there's a lot of facets to it. And we're looking to bring in a partner that will come in and help us assess our tactics, see what else we can do to optimize the things we're doing, look at our overall advertising and spend, and help us make sure that we are at the right level for what we're trying to accomplish. Cesar?
To remain an employer of choice in the area, we continuously improve on the processes we have in place and rely on data to fine-tune the qualities that help identify a successful candidate. We also review what other employers in the area are doing. We continue to remain competitive in salary and benefits. However, there are opportunities to differentiate ourselves. Employers in the area are offering a signing bonus ranging from $1,000 to $7,500, flexibility and work-life balance. Those are things that we are continually looking at to determine whether or not these will be beneficial to potential candidates and our employees. Next slide, please. As a comparison, this is a list showing some of the employers in our area who are offering signing bonuses. Pierce Transit recently implemented a $1,500 signing bonus for their coach operators. Next slide, please. What are we doing to recruit and retrain qualified candidates for 2024 and beyond? As Jennifer has shared, we have been working diligently over several years to ensure that we identify qualities that we have identified through analysis that will determine success in our programs. We want to continue to be an employer of choice. We are continually improving our processes, as mentioned before, to ensure 100% success of candidates, and continue to analyze industry and adjust to remain competitive. Next slide. Any questions?
Go ahead, Jen.
Okay, I'm coming from an educator's point of view and someone who has supported voc ed my entire life. And with the Cascade Industrial Center, there's so many opportunities out there for our kids to go on to some kind of training, not a four-year college. So I guess my question is there a way that we can reach out to the skill center that's local in our county, to community colleges, to the job training station they have at Everett Community College? We've even got one here in Arlington. It's small, it just trains 20 at a time, but how can we reach out to them to give them the same information, or at least so that they can come on? I know we've had a program in the past before COVID that we took buses to schools and talked to them and everything, but is there a way to reach out to the ones that are already working on getting kids ready for jobs?
Thank you very much for the question. We have certainly reached out to community partners. We've been super active, very active with a variety of community partners, including our very strong commitment to veterans, where we were recognized, the agency was recognized for the work. Although we are short on time, we could have gone into great depth into the relationships that we have continued to maintain. Obviously, with COVID, that has been a challenge, but we remain committed to work with these partners to ensure that we attract candidates. And I agree with you, Council Member, that a four-year degree is not necessarily the best option for everyone. We need to provide the younger generations a variety of opportunities to obtain gainful employment, and it could be through on-the-job training, it could be through vocational programs, it could be through community colleges, it could be through a four-year institution. I completely agree with you with that perspective.
Thank you.
Anybody
Chair,
else?
I had a quick
Go
question.
ahead, Sid.
Yeah, I was just wondering about, the signing bonuses are obviously important, but just wondering about recruitment bonuses for current employees. Is that something that you've considered?
Yes, sir. We actually already offer that. We
Oh, you do?
offer a referral program, yes. We have been offering one for several years, and recently we increased the amount. Not too long ago, we brought a resolution forward to the board to give the CEO a little bit more latitude than was there before.
Can you tell me, Cesar, how much is the recruitment referral bonus for drivers to bring another driver on?
Oh, I will have to refer to one of my partners, Vera Lee Estes. Are you on the line, Vera Lee?
I can tell you, I believe it's 600 if they're hired, and 100. We added $100 bonus if they reach the interview portion. So I think that puts it at 700 total. Is that right, Vera Lee?
That is correct. For coach operators, it's 600 at various stages.
Well, I've always felt that that's some of the best advertising, a user as an employee. Bring your friends over, and it just makes me wonder if maybe that could be increased a little bit, because the goal is to get a hire. And so anyway, this is kind of interesting because I'm a real estate broker for 40 years, and I've always had sellers try to tell me what to do, about how to get their house sold. They don't need to lower the price, of course. They need me to put something on the internet. But thank you for at least listening to us. And I like the incentive for employees. I think that's a good idea, but thank you.
Mayor Roberts, I do want to address your last point. You're absolutely correct. When we have reviewed where we get most of our referrals, especially successful candidates, it is from employees referring others. There is one department whose most recent hires, probably 3 or 4, are all from referrals.
Right. Yeah, very good. Thank you.
So Jennifer, I've got a question. A lot of these things that you're doing for your marketing, do you also participate, or do we participate in job fairs?
Yes, and actually Cesar can probably talk to that because his group does quite a lot of work on that.
Okay, so I'm going to make this short, and we don't need any more comments on it, but the Lake Stevens Chamber and the Lake Stevens Veterans Commission are teaming up to put on a job fair this spring. And Community Transit is a chamber member. So we might want to, I'll make sure we reach out to you and get you all the information on that.
Thank you very much. We look forward to it.
Right. Is there any other questions for either Cesar or Jennifer?
Labor Representative Lance Norton, Kim.
Go ahead, Lance.
I think under the circumstances that we are all going through with the COVID and all of this, this is the most vulnerable, one of the most vulnerable jobs that anybody can be doing these days. You get how many people on a bus, depending on the routes, every single day, on and off, walking by you, coughing. Yeah, masks required. It means nothing to some people anymore. So, as I said, under normal conditions, the background checks, the age requirements, you can't get them popping out of high school. In most cases, it's if they've had their military, then they can go back off of 25 years of age to maybe 22. And as I said, the background checks, their driving record, of course, in the background checks. It's difficult. These days, it is terrible trying to get more people. We just had a number of people walk out the door over not wanting to get a virus shot. Experienced operators. And a number of them that I spoke to said, I'm sick of people walking by me, Lance, no mask on, they don't care. They're not paying fares. We're being disrespected more than ever. It's tough. It's tough out there. To have any thoughts of getting back to normal as far as employment goes within the next few years, you dream on. It's going to be very difficult. And it's a shame. It's a great job. I did it for 30 years, actually 36 years, and then president down in King County. And I loved the job. It was different. It's unique from many, many jobs. We had college-educated, university-educated people driving because it was such a different job and a rewarding job, getting out there with the public. It's difficult more than ever these days. And I appreciate all the efforts going into getting people and trying to sell them on the jobs. As Kim just mentioned, the job fairs. You know, bring them in, show them a tour of the facilities, get them out on the routes and stuff. It's difficult. But that's all I just wanted to add. Thank you all for your efforts.
Thank you, Lance. Anything else? If not, we'll go ahead and move on. Okay, the one we're all waiting for is, I guess it's going to be June and the zero emission study. So we're going to be at zero emissions, what, next month? Is that what it is?
Absolutely. Okay. So the zero emission study has begun. The contract was approved in October. We identified an internal stakeholder group and we had our initial kickoff meeting in late November. As Rick said at the beginning, this is really, I'm not going to do a very deep dive, just kind of setting the expectations for a board workshop in April. So what is a zero emission bus? And before I go too deep, I'm going to let you know that there are a lot of acronyms in here. There's a lot of words. Primarily, we're talking about two types of vehicles, a battery electric bus, which is called a BEB, or a hydrogen fuel cell electric bus. Both vehicles are actually electric buses. It's the type of propulsion that they use that differentiates them. I also want to point out that while I will probably keep saying bus, the study itself is designed to look at entire fleets. So all of our fleets, vans, smaller vehicles, support vehicles, DART possibly, but it's not, even though I might say bus, it is more extensive than that. So battery electric buses really have lower capital and operating expense, but they also have a lower operating range, which in turn could mean you need a bigger fleet or more infrastructure to support that fleet. And when we're talking about the zero emission, it's not just the vehicle. In fact, the vehicle is probably the easiest part of it. It's the infrastructure, the workforce changes, the planning, the logistics, everything behind it to make that zero emission bus work. So, as I mentioned, there's a number of factors that we have to look at, and we are diving into too deeply before any decision point is brought to the board. And the real purpose of this study is to educate, to identify, to ask questions, to learn, so that when we get to the end of the study, the board feels comfortable in making a decision about what path we go on. Some of the recent zero emission trends, batteries are getting better. They're able to have higher energy density, and they're getting a bit smaller or less heavy. They're getting lighter. Vehicles themselves, where there were only one or two manufacturers earlier, now we're seeing many of the first tier manufacturers are coming to the market and making vehicles available. So this chart is really an overview in terms of cost. Fuel cell electric buses tend to be, as I said, a little bit more expensive, but there's a lot, and there's only two manufacturers that are currently making the fuel cell vehicles, whereas we have about 5 or 6. Van Hool is coming back into the market on battery electric buses. But the comprehensive cost analysis will be for a full life cycle cost, as well as a wells to wheels analysis on the environmental benefit. We're not just picking an individual factor to say, yep, this is the one that makes it, but we really want to look at the entire life cycle as well as the entire environmental benefit. Most of the issues, though, is the infrastructure. There will be impacts. It's not as simple as just buying a bus. And several agencies around the country have learned that lesson the hard way. They've ordered the bus showed up, and then they went, now what do we do with it? How do we fuel it? What do we need? How are we going to get the fuel? What does it do to our facility? What does it do to our workforce? Oh my gosh, there's so many changes. So we're trying to come at this in a very logical progression to answer all of those questions ahead of time. Facilities are also evolving to be purpose-built for zero-emission vehicles, and they need to be planned and constructed for the future changes in deployments, not just what we have now or what we're transitioning now, but what we expect to be in the future. An awful lot of what we've talked about is the capacity and the flexibility and the changes that are coming in the future, and the zero-emission trend needs to address that also. As I mentioned, it's a real evolution in our industry at this time. Many aspects of how we do business need to be considered, including the route networks, the workforce impacts. All of it needs to be a part of the study so that we're doing this very thoughtfully. The ultimate question is this: how do we make that transition with as little disruption to our riders, our operation, our operators, and our service area? So our next steps, we will continue to do some high-level assessments and some of the initial cost comparisons. The board workshop in April with the consultant team will allow you to dive a little deeper. Personally, I put this picture in here. I think this is a really intriguing way. AC Transit in Oakland, California ordered 25 zero-emission buses, 25 BEBs, battery electric buses, and 25 fuel cell buses at the same time from the same manufacturer to be delivered together and to be deployed on the exact same routes for a true head-to-head comparison of how they work in their service area. We're actually looking forward to seeing what the results of that are and what they learn. That could help us too. So as I said, it's a very high flavor of what's going on, but I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, June. Anybody have any questions for June at this time? Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, one question I have is there any discussions or cross-pollination between what the heavy-duty truck industry is doing and the bus companies? I know there's quite a bit of work going on investigating fuel cells in the trucking industry, whether they're learning anything from that.
Absolutely. I think right now the industry as a whole, whether it's bus manufacturers or heavy-duty trucks, are really, we're all learning together. We're all starting to take those lessons. I have heard some agencies say that one of the concerns is the explosion in the private vehicle market. A lot of these batteries are made with rare earth materials. And so at what point is the demand greater than the supply in even component parts of these vehicles? So again, they're all pieces of the puzzle that we want to be able to present to the board and learn about together before the final decision is made.
Hey, Jan, go ahead.
So my question is, and I heard you mention private vehicles. I know that there is a big increase in people buying electrical cars and trucks or whatever that they drive back and forth to work. So knowing that, with the new cash park, are we putting in charging stations for our staff and so that they've got something, or at least running the wiring so that we can put them in later or anything?
So that's a great preview because my next presentation will be on the facility master plan and all phases thereof. What I can say is we currently have some electric vehicles or some hybrid electric vehicles in our support fleets, and we have charging stations for those vehicles. We do not currently allow our staff to charge on that. There are some concerns about gift of public funds issues with allowing private individuals to utilize a public facility. However, that's obviously something we can look at in the future. That's just been our past position. In the current facility master plan, we are not looking at expansion of zero emission. However, I will identify where we've got opportunity as we continue with that program.
Okay, thank you.
All right, well, let's go ahead and move on to the next one. The facilities master plan.
Like Joe had a question.
Oh, I'm sorry, Joe. Didn't see her.
No, that's all right. And we could move forward. I just wanted to say that I am, as I said before, I'm really glad we're looking and doing a comparison because quite frankly, I have some serious concerns with regard to this push for all electric, because if we look at our grid, if even probably a third of our vehicles went to electric, I don't know that we have a power grid that could handle that, let alone our buses. They're talking about ferries. And at the same time, and I know especially you in municipalities are hearing the push, we'll probably see legislation that is trying to push natural gas out when that used to be considered the clean energy. We all remember that, right? And they're pushing to electric. So I'll probably expect to see legislation that requires all new construction to be electric. That's more on our grid. And then the final shoe to drop is there's still a big push to get rid of the hydroelectric dams for the salmon. Well, you can't do all three of those and expect that it's going to handle the system. So at least the hydrogen fuel cell would be a way that we're still electric, but we're not counting on the grid to provide the electricity. So again, just thoughts that I have for the future.
Well, you can add to that, Joe, that the processes for making the hydrogen is very high in electrical use. So, you know, it's a very circular thing, and it all goes to the grid no matter how you do it.
Nuclear buses it is.
I'm a nuke. I can do that. That's not a problem. Or an ex-nuke, I guess. Okay, June, go ahead.
Okay, so next presentation, I'm still June Duvall with the Planning Department. Facility Master Plan Overview. So just as a quick reminder, the Facility Master Plan consists of 6 phases with 7 distinct projects. I'm going to quickly remind you what each of those distinct phases are, and then I'll dive deeper into where we're at in each one. So phase 1 is the Cascade Administrative Building, a new administration building on Casino Road by our Cash Park operating base. Phase 2 is a renovation of our existing administration building to turn it into a transportation operations building. Phase 3 has two projects, A and B. A is the west side of this building, where you can kind of see this dotted line, where we're adding 6 additional maintenance bays in order to create expansion for our fleet and more space for our mechanics. B will be the east side of the building, what is currently office space, to renovate the administration portion of this building. Phase 4 is our Cash Park operating base renovation. Now I'm going to pause here shortly because phase 4 has been deferred to the future at another time because of our evolving needs. So a little while ago, I said, you know, Jan, you asked, are we looking at possible base needs? This is where we think we might have some opportunities. So for right now, phase 4 has been deferred to the future until we've made some other decisions. Then we'll come back and look at the renovation on phase 4. Phase 5 is a new vehicle storage and training facility in close proximity to our Cash Park, our new Cascade Administration building. It's directly across the street. From Rick's office, he has an eye view of everything that's going to happen there. And phase 6 is a remodel of our ride store at Linwood Transit Center before light rail gets to Linwood. So where are we? Our Cascade Administration building is in progress right now. It is, I'll explain it more fully by photos. I think they talk a lot better than I do, actually. So right here you have a rendering. On the left side, you have a rendering of the new entrance into the building. And on the right side, you can see what it looked like about 2 weeks ago. So you can see we are progressing. Things are coming along very, very quickly. This is a look at the atrium seating in the middle of the building. Again, on the left is the rendering and on the right is the current progress. And this is a view of the second floor at the north end of the building looking south. So you can see how it's open down the middle. The atrium seating is actually at the far end of this. And again, we have the rendering on the left and the actual on the right. So where we're at with this building right now, we're about 90% complete. Expect substantial completion in the February and March timeframe, and our target for moving in is in April. We have had some slight schedule impacts due to the supply chain issues that everyone's heard about. We've had about a 2-month slide on the move-in. The project is still under budget with a remaining contingency available. Our goal, I put goal in parentheses, is that we would like to be able to schedule open houses in March for staff and board members to come see the building before we move in, when events are allowed and it is safe to do so. So hoping really hard that we'll be able to set up open houses, give tours, let people see the building before everyone moves in. I'm going to move on to phase 2, which is the Merrill Creek Transportation Operations Building. The design on this is done, and we will soon be releasing bids for the project in February. Construction, however, cannot begin until the current administrative staff vacate this building and move over to Cascade. Then the building will be available for additional construction. Again, just some renderings of what the building will look like. These two show an indoor and outdoor operator lounge area where the operators will be able to wait for their work. And as I mentioned, design is 100% complete. Construction should begin by Q3 of this year with a move-in targeted by the end of 2023. For phase 3, the Merrill Creek maintenance expansion. This one is going to take a little bit longer. And part of that, we did our groundbreaking last summer. Construction has begun and is going great guns. However, the contractor is working around active operations. So it's not like the other two where it's an empty building. They can get in, they can do their work and get out. This, they have to keep our active operations going. So it's a little more phased approach with this. But where we're at right now is, I'll explain the photos. On the left is the new maintenance bays. So we're putting in 6 additional maintenance bays, and you can kind of see where those bays are going to be. And on the right is the new stormwater, because we've had to put in a much larger vault than we had before. The facility, the construction's about 20% complete, and we are on budget at this point. We are anticipating some delays due to supply chain issues. There have been some supply chain issues with structural steel, which has been delayed. But we have our contractor trying to work around that to do some of the other things, bring them forward as much as we can to try to minimize those delays. What we can say though, and our biggest need is to have sufficient maintenance capacity when the new Swift Orange Line coaches arrive so that we can deploy that service. And that is still on schedule. We still expect that additional capacity for the Swift Orange Line coaches will be available when those coaches get here. So moving on just a little bit to the phase 5, the vehicle storage and training facility. You might all remember that we purchased some land on Casino Road last year. We were able to close escrow in the fall. We have started the design. We're actually at 60% design on this because it's a pretty easy, and I can kind of walk through. I hope you can see my cursor a little bit, but there will be an entryway into the facility. Around the perimeter will be storage. So van pool storage, 40-foot, 60-foot DART vehicles. And the need for storage is pretty acute in that we have our existing fleet. We've had a lot of our vans returned, so we're storing them right now. But even in our current fleet, as we buy replacement buses, there's a period of time that we have 2 buses for every one we need. The new ones have come in and need to be commissioned before they can go into service. So we still have the old ones in service. The new ones aren't ready yet. So we've got both vehicles here. And then when the new vehicles go into service, the old ones have to be decommissioned before they can go to auction or be disposed of. But what it does is it creates a space requirement for having 2 coaches at the same time. Our fleet ends up being a little bigger than we anticipate, and we've got to have a place to store those vehicles. The dark area in the middle is where the new operator training course will be. So our training department sets up obstacles for new operators to drive through, and that's where that will be. You can kind of see these hash mark buildings here. We're looking at taking 2 of the modulars that are currently at the Merrill Creek base, bringing them to this facility so that we have training rooms, bathrooms, areas that the trainers can talk to their trainees and work on things as they need to. So currently our design work is on schedule. We are on budget. We expect construction to begin in the middle part of this year, pending permitting. We have had some delays due to permitting with our jurisdictional partners, and so we're pushing on them as hard as we can to make sure it doesn't slow this project down. But our target is to complete this project by the end of the year. The ride store remodel, again, we're looking at revising the ride store to give us more capacity, more flexibility, and to be ready to accommodate more riders when Link Like Rail opens up. So our design work did start in late last year. We are getting very close to the 30% design review in February, with construction starting early next year. So ultimately, all these projects nest together. The overall program schedule for all phases of the project are shown here. And in the next few months, we expect to be bringing several board actions to you, such as the grand opening of phase 1, the Cascade Administrative Building, the construction contract award on the operations building, the design consultant for 3B, which is the administrative side of the maintenance building, and then construction management and construction contract on 5. So we expect that all of these will be coming up in the next 6 months. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, June. Anybody have any questions for June? All right. I'll go ahead, Tom.
We talked in the strategic planning the other day, and then also today, that the supply chain is becoming one of the factors that we're really designing to. Do you know whether that's beginning to ease up, or is it bad, or is it getting worse right now?
I think it's a little unstable right now. There's some things we know are being affected, and then there's other things that we get surprised by. I don't think anyone quite has the answer yet on the supply chain issues. I think it's also affecting bids, and that we may see that as our next few bids come through, that the contractors are starting to take that into account also. So we're watching it carefully, but we don't have any more insight than anyone else at this point.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Jan.
I don't have a question, but I want to say June, that was an excellent presentation. I love the fact that you showed what it's going to look like in the end and what it looks like now. And you covered absolutely every single aspect of it so that we have all the knowledge when people are talking, depending on what committee we're on, and we understand because we've seen it all. So thank you. You did a fantastic job. Appreciate that.
All right, anybody else? All right, then we'll go ahead and move on. Thank you, June. I appreciate it. Next is the chair's report. The only thing I'm going to talk about is the February 3rd at 3 p.m. We have a board meeting, regular scheduled board meeting. At that meeting, we will have the election of the board officers, which is the board chair, the vice chair, and the secretary. In addition to that, we will be picking the Puget Sound Transportation Policy Board representatives from our group. Right now, those stand at myself, and as a backup is Jan Schweddy, but those can change if somebody wants to take those over. We'll talk about that then. Now I'm going to open up for board communications. We'll go ahead and start with Mayor Naring.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I don't have anything particular, just really good updates on everything today, and look forward to our caucus here coming up. Thanks.
All right, Mayor Roberts.
Oh, same. I'm good. And those were good presentations. And I echo Jan's comments about they were all good and they appreciated. Thank you.
All right, Councilmember Schweddy.
Sorry, had to unmute. Well, we still have enormous growth with manufacturing going in Arlington. In fact, we're actually running out of space, but SmartCap, which actually built the Blue Origin building and has a huge building across from the Amazon, is in the process right now, and it should happen before the end of the month, of leasing over 30 acres north of where they are right now on 172nd for 7 buildings. That is actually one company. They were not at liberty to discuss who that company was, but any company that takes that many buildings and are willing to put in actually roadways has got to be big, and it's going to bring an enormous amount of jobs to Arlington. And I am looking forward to the day when they expand 172nd and we can have bus routes down there, because we're going to have thousands and thousands of people who are working on 172nd. Thank you.
Thank you, Jan. Lance Norton.
Thank you. You know, Jan, it's somewhat disappointing that very little look ahead on the road conditions. The traffic in the afternoons is just brutal on that stretch there with all the growth. Outside of that, I have nothing else. Thank you all.
Thank you, Lance. Councilmember Merrill.
Nothing much. I wanted to echo the sentiments about a great presentation, and it's exciting to see these projects moving forward and get an update on that. Thank you.
And Councilmember Mead, or did he drop off? I don't see him anymore. Councilmember Mead, are you there? And Mayor Joe Marine.
No, I've got nothing. Thank you very much. Just apologize, Rachel, I'm a pain.
And I'm going to go ahead and go with Mike, Councilmember Gallagher.
Nothing here, but ditto all of the terrific comments about the presentations. They were great.
Okay, great. Thank you. We do not have an executive session. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you, Mr. Hendricks. So any other business to bring up to the board for the good of the order? If not, I would, Rick, go ahead.
No, I just, nothing to add. I just want to thank the board for supporting all these initiatives. Thank the staff for such great presentations, and obviously a lot more going on. We didn't talk today about BRT much. We didn't talk too much about the Linwood pilot project and the service innovation initiative that's coming up. So there's more to come, but I appreciate the lightning round today to give you some quick hits on some of the bigger things. So thank you.
Okay, great. We're going to adjourn, but I would remind you that in 25 minutes, we start again with the board composition. I'll see you all there.
Thanks, everyone.